Most nachos fail for 3 reasons: soggy chips, broken cheese, or uneven toppings. But today, you're gonna learn to fix all of it. Before we get into this, I just need to let you know that there's a bird outside that has been taunting my cat all morning, so it's likely that he'll be here for an extended period of time. So, goose, everybody, goose. Cool. Now, whether you're watching the Super Bowl or fight night, or you just want to spend an evening eating dinner from the comfort of your couch, alone in the dark, loaded sheet pan nachos are the pinnacle. And I promise, if you stay with me to the end, you will have the tools and the knowledge to make them perfectly at home in under 45 minutes. And truthfully, you can do it in less than 45 minutes because I'm showing you some extra stuff just to give you some options. Now, the first part of our nachos we're gonna be talking about is our meat, and more specifically, our seasoning. Now, you can 100% use a pre-made seasoning blend, but if you wanted to, you could also make a nice fajita-style seasoning blend at home. Super easy. 2 tablespoons of chili powder, a teaspoon and a half of smoked paprika, 1 tablespoon ground cumin, 1 tablespoon ground coriander, a tablespoon each of onion and garlic powder, and 2 tablespoons of dried oregano. And then from here, all you really need to do is just whisk it all together until it's nice and mixed. And you might be wondering right now why I didn't add any salt to this. And the reason being is because we're gonna be doing 3 different meats. And each one of these meats, I'm gonna want a little more salt or a little less salt, depending on what it is. And for our first meat, we're gonna be working with steak. Now, the cut that I'm using today is gonna be just a thinly sliced beef chuck, because quite honestly, you don't need anything expensive. I've got a little over a half pound here, but again, if you wanted to do just beef, you could just do like a pound and a half. You want to do just chicken, just do a pound and a half. Just shrimp, pound and a half. It's really up to you because the measurements on meat on something like this isn't really super important. But what is important is if you're going to be using a tougher cut of meat like chuck, then you want to make sure you're cutting your pieces pretty thin. So we're going to be starting by just cutting this into long, thin strips, just like that. And we're just going to repeat that all the way through our meat. And once all of your beef is cut into nice thin strips, we're just going to rotate it sideways and we're going to go ahead and cut it into nice, small, tiny bits. It doesn't need to be perfect, just roughly the same size, so it all cooks in roughly the same amount of time. I feel like this is also a good point to say that you don't have to use chuck. You can really use any cut of meat you want. If you really wanted to go expensive, go expensive. You can use a ribeye or something, but you could also just like use ground beef. There's nothing wrong with that. But either way, once your meat is all nicely cut up, we're just gonna move that into a bowl and set it to the side. Now for our next meat, we have shrimp, which I got mine peeled and deveined already, but if you did not, then you'll need to get yours peeled and deveined. You're also gonna wanna remove the tail because as much as leaving the tail on might feel fancy, no one in the history of the world has ever been like, wow, you know what made this meal better? I had to stop using my fork, to use my hand, to grab the tail out of my mouth. It's never happened. And you could totally, technically speaking, eat the tails, that's fine, but not everybody likes that, so I'm not gonna tell you to eat the tail. And also, if you're looking for a super easy way to remove the tails from your shrimp in a super easy, quick, and one-handed way, here's what you do. Take a shrimp, right where the fins meet the not fin part, pinch, and squeeze. Just like that. It's effective and it keeps your other hand clean, which is great. And now that my shrimp are nice and peeled, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut these into thirds to make sure that we are getting a good amount of shrimp per bite, but we're also not getting like 1 shrimp in like 1 bite and then it's like, the next 5 chips is gonna have no shrimp. We wanna make sure that we have enough shrimp per bite, but not so much that it leaves the rest of our bites shrimpless. Even distribution of your shrimp is what we're aiming for. And then from there, we're also going to move that into a separate bowl. And now for our third and final protein, and again, you can feel free to use 1 or 2 or none of them or all of them, whatever you wanna do. We're going with chicken thighs. Boneless and skinless to be specific. But if you don't have boneless, skinless, and you need to do that, then I will wait. Great, now that we're all cut up, we're gonna go ahead and cut these into nice long thin strips, similar to what we did with our beef. And then we'll rotate it and cut those strips into cubes. And you may be wondering why we're cutting all this stuff down instead of seasoning it, cooking it, and then cutting it down. There's 2 important reasons for that. The first is you're gonna get more seasoning coverage if we cut them first. If you were to just season the outside of your chicken thigh, cook it, and then cut it up, you only end up with pieces of chicken that have seasoning on the top and bottom, versus there's 4 other sides around each cube that have no seasoning. If we do it this way, everything gets seasoned. The second reason, it cooks quicker. And whoever wanted it to last longer? Nope. That's not whoever wanted your cooking experience to take longer than it needed to. Cool, I'm sorry. And now we'll move this chicken over to our third and final bowl. And now that our meat is all cut up, we can go ahead and season it, which, like I said, you don't have to use a homemade spice blend. You can totally use a pre-made one. Doesn't matter. Whatever makes it easier for you and more enjoyable for you. That's all that matters. But either way, we're gonna go ahead and drizzle on a little bit of olive oil onto each of our proteins here. This is just gonna help to bind our seasoning to our meat. Then, because we didn't add any salt or pepper to our blend, we're gonna go ahead and do that now. But if you are using a pre-made spice blend, go ahead and double check that your spice blend doesn't already have salt in it, because if it does, you don't wanna overdo it. And this part is more of an eyeball thing. It's really a personal preference as to how much seasoning you like on your meats, but you know, you can always add more, but you can't ever take away. So take your time. There's no rush. But once that meat has been seasoned, we're gonna go ahead and just toss it all together, make sure everything is nice and evenly coated, and then we'll just repeat that down the line with the rest of our meats. And then once you're finished, they should all more or less look like this. And then we can just set all these to the side while we prep everything else. Next up, we have our corn salsa, which could not be any easier. You just have to do that first. Just start with that. Then we'll drain one 15-ounce can of cooked corn. Using my favorite can opener. It is seriously the best thing I've ever purchased, ever. How are you guys doing? How's your week? What's going on? What's new? It's been a week since I've talked. I know there were some people last week who were having a not so great week, but I hope you're having a better week this week. And if you see someone say that they're having a rough week down below, go ahead and just cheer them up. Remind them that it's gonna be okay. Let's all be good people here. And then just go ahead and add that corn straight into a bowl. And we're just gonna go ahead and dice up half a red onion, cutting off the tip, removing all the skin, slicing down and around, then rotating and slicing straight down. And if you would like a more detailed walkthrough on how to cut really every vegetable, then go ahead and check out last week's video after this, because I walk you through how to do it and actually cut stuff and not just learn like fancy names in French. Like, you're gonna learn how to cut stuff, vegetables to be specific. Now we're just gonna go ahead and dice up half of a jalapeno, not half, one jalapeno. We're gonna dice that jalapeno in half, cut it in. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get it right. I'm gonna be better. I cut it in half. Now I'm gonna go core out all the seeds and the white, and then we're gonna dice it. Give me a second. Come on, man, you can do this. You got this, man. Be better, be better. You can speak English. You can speak just fine. Sick, I'm back. Now we're just gonna go ahead and slice these into thin slices. Repeating with both sides, of course. Then we'll just group them together and give them a nice fine dice. And this part is optional. You don't have to add the jalapeno in there if you don't want it to be spicy, but it's such a small amount of jalapeno that I don't feel like it adds a ton of spice. But if you're someone who can't handle any spice, then I would just recommend leaving it out, because if it's spicy, then you may not enjoy it, and then the whole thing is ruined because then you're not enjoying it. So if you don't like spicy, just leave it out. Now we're gonna do about 1/4 of a bush of jalapeno. Cilantro, about 1/4 of a bush of cilantro. Can't speak today, crazy. And we'll just go ahead and give that a rough chop. And this is more of just a personal preference of how big you like your slices of cilantro. Personally, I think it's really good, nice and small in this kind of application, but it's up to you. But if you have the soap gene, then definitely leave this one out. This is for sure, leave it out. And also, I'm really sorry, that sucks. And now last up, we're just gonna zest one lime by going all the way around versus rubbing the life out of just one spot. If you go all the way around and avoid the white, then it won't be gross and pithy. See, it should look like this when you're done, or better than that, because there's still some spots I missed. But then we'll just go ahead and cut this lime in half and juice it right on in. But save the other half for later, because we're gonna need it. Now we can just add a nice pinch of salt here and give this a gentle toss together. And this is a pro tip. When you are seasoning stuff like this, especially for nachos, this is the way that I do it, taste test it with a chip and not with your spoon, because your chip has salt on it. So if there's too much salt in that and then there's salt on this and it's too much, sometimes you can go with undersalting something because there's enough salt on this to kind of compensate. So I would recommend tasting and adjusting with a chip. More salt. Perfect. And then now we can just set this aside for later. And now we can work on the last of our additional toppings. The first of which, a tomato. We're gonna start by cutting off the top and the bottom. Then we'll set it upright, cut down the side, and we're gonna go ahead and cut in and around to hollow out all the nasty wet bits, because this can definitely cause our nachos to get soggy. Then we just flip that over and press it down. We'll go ahead and cut this into nice short strips. Then we'll group those together and cut those strips into a nice dice. Also, the selection of tomatoes at my grocery store today was rough at best. So if you can find a better looking tomato, by all means, please use a better looking tomato. This is not great. Next up, we have an avocado, which technically speaking could just make guacamole, but there's a reason why I don't think that you should make guacamole for nachos like this. Oh, you want me to tell you the reason? Okay. The reason is that everything you would put into guacamole is already going to be on our nachos in some form or factor. And you could argue, well, why don't you just put that stuff into a guacamole? But then you have to use a lot of avocados to make enough to kind of evenly spread and disperse, because guac doesn't really spread well. I mean, it's spreadable, but like on nachos, it's usually just like a dollop here, a dollop there, a dollop there. And then you've got like a bunch of bites without it and then a bunch of bites with it. And that's like not what you really want, because the guacamole bites are gonna be gone. So I think it's better to just dice up your avocado versus make a guacamole, but that's just my opinion. You feel free to do whatever makes your heart happy. Now to cut these into a nice dice, I'm just gonna slice them in half long ways. 1 time for a thinner side and 2 times for this thicker side. Then we'll just cut them straight back, rotate, and proceed to dice. It's as easy as that. But also, if it wasn't easy for you, like, no worries. It wasn't easy for me when I first started either. Some stuff still isn't easy for me. So don't worry if it's not coming easy. You'll get it, I promise. And now we have about 4 stalks of green onions, which we are just going to thinly slice on a bias. I feel like green onions are one of those things that sometimes will randomly appear on nachos and other times just aren't, which makes sense. Like, it's not a common nacho topping, but I think they're really good because I like green onions. But I would recommend you try it sometime. Like right now, when you're making these nachos that you're making, try it. Do it. Do it. And last up on our garnishes, we just have a little bit of cilantro. Nothing too much, nothing too little. We just want to take off some of those leaves, just to sprinkle on top, because when you add cilantro to the top of things, it makes it fancy. Unless you have the soap thing, in which case don't add it. It's not fancy, then it'll just taste like soap. And now for our sauce, because who doesn't love a good sauce? We're gonna be using our stick blender, but if you don't have a stick blender, no worries. You can absolutely do this by hand. You just have to chop up a few things, but you can do it. Starting with a 1/2 cup of sour cream and a cup of mayonnaise. And you can totally swap both the sour cream and the mayonnaise for like non-fat Greek yogurt if you're trying to do the healthy thing, but I don't like the way that they taste with non-fat Greek yogurt, because mentally in my head, it's yogurt and not sauce. I'm a child. About 1.5 tablespoons of vinegar, but in my case, I'm using the brine from some pickled jalapenos we're gonna be tossing on this thing later. 3 chipotle peppers, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 1/2 tablespoon of onion powder, 1/2 tablespoon of smoked paprika, and the juice from that 1/2 lime that we had from earlier. I told you it was gonna come back. And then now, all we need to do is just blend it all together. And then before we go ahead and remove it, taste for salt. It's good. And now I feel like typically I tell you guys to like put it into a plastic bottle and then use that bottle to dispense your sauce. And I still think that that is the optimum way to do it, or to do any sauce. But I also understand that like if you don't have a bottle at home, or you don't want to buy a bottle, whatever the situation is, you don't need a bottle. You can also, especially if you're just going to use it in the moment, just use a plastic bag. If you pour all the sauce, like so, I'm just gonna open it up, into a plastic bag like this, while not the most effective means of storing, it is an incredibly effective way to drizzle a sauce. Because all you need to do now is just cut off the tip and you just drizzle, that's it. And it didn't cost you any money. So, well, I did, but the cost of a Ziploc bag and not a bottle. So if you don't have a bottle, you can use a Ziploc bag. And now we're gonna go ahead and cook our meat, starting with our steak. Bringing our pan up to medium-high heat. Once we're preheated, gonna go ahead and add in a little bit of olive oil, and then we can just carefully drop in our meat. Now, I most definitely should have used a larger pan here because I'm overcrowding the life of my pan, but that's okay. Things happen, we'll make it work. I wanna spread this out into as thin of a layer as possible and let that first side sear and set and cook. And after a couple minutes on that first side, we're just gonna go ahead and start flipping it over. We should have a relatively nice sear. You should have a better sear because you didn't overcrowd your pan. And we're just gonna toss this all around, and then we'll just spread this out and let it cook for another couple minutes. Then after another couple minutes, we should be basically cooked all the way through. And we can move all this to a clean bowl. Oh, I missed one. Good. Now, before you continue to the next meat, if your pan is looking all nasty and cooked on like this because you overcrowded your pan and cooled down the temperature and then stuff got kicked on, then go ahead and give it a good scrape before you toss anything else in there, because that's just all gonna burn if we don't scrape it off. Mistakes happen. It's okay. Good as newish. Now we're gonna go ahead and add a little bit more olive oil, let this preheat accordingly, and then we can just carefully toss in our shrimp, making sure not to overcrowd our pan again. And shrimp cooks a lot faster, which means it will overcook a lot faster too. So definitely keep an eye on this. It's not gonna take very long. Really, you're looking at about 1.5 to 2 minutes, depending on how thick your shrimp is and how hot your pan is. And then once all that's cooked, we can go ahead and remove it as well. Move on to our chicken. I'm gonna wash this first. And after a quick rinse, we're back to preheating, medium-high again. Then of course a little bit of oil and our chicken. Again, not overcrowding. And then we'll just spread this out into a nice even layer and let it cook for about 2 minutes. tea today because I'm trying to cut back on my sugar. It's still good. And now after a couple minutes, we should be able to go ahead and just lift off our chicken. There we go. Give it a nice toss. And then we'll let this cook for roughly another 2 minutes. It's not the same as Capri Sun, but it's really good. And then from there, we can just go ahead and remove it into our bowl. Meat done. And now for arguably the most important part of any nacho, cheese. Now for our cheese, we're gonna be making a cheese sauce. We are not doing shredded cheese here. Shredded cheese is like the worst thing you can put on nachos because shredded cheese is only good when it's melted immediately after it's melted. And then anytime after that, it becomes like this awful chain that like will take away toppings from other chips. Like, you know the feeling when you go and like you pick up a chip and then that chip is the cheese on it and that cheese is attached to like 6 other chips and you give it a good yank and you've now pulled the cheese and all of accompanying accoutrements off those other chips and now those chips are naked and soggy and sad. That's why we're not doing shredded cheese. Also, I can't find my box grater still. It's been almost a month. I don't know where it is. I've looked everywhere. Plus, if you overheat shredded cheese, which most places will do when they're making nachos, the oil will start to separate and that oil will get onto the chips and make the chips soggy. So, you know, we don't want that. But for our cheese, we're gonna start with about 1 2/3 cup or 400 milliliters of whole milk. And we're gonna bring this up just until it's warm. Like, not a simmer, just below a simmer. It should be hot, but not hot. Not too hot, just hot enough. And now once our milk has become nice and hot and steamy, we're gonna go ahead and add in our sodium citrate, 2 teaspoons of it. And if you're wondering what sodium citrate is, then it's really simple. It's just basically sodium, some salt, and citric acid, something you get like out of lemons and limes, right? It's citrusy, it's acidy, it's that stuff. And it's formed together in this crystal-like form, and then you put it into things and it helps to emulsify things like cheese sauces. It's used in tons of different sauces and tons of different kitchens all around the world. It's totally safe in the right amounts. The same way that like salt is safe in the right amounts. I meant like, don't think like, oh, if I eat too much of this, I'm just gonna immediately die. Like, no, it's like use the proper amount and you're chilling. The same way like if you use the proper amount of salt, you're chilling. If you use too much salt, not good for you either. But yeah, sodium citrate, it's good stuff. It'll help to make sure our cheese sauce stays a sauce and doesn't like solidify into grossness and graininess the second we take it off the heat, because nobody likes that. Also, half teaspoon of smoked paprika and a half teaspoon of garlic powder. And now at this point, we can go ahead and start adding in our cheese. I have 8 ounces of medium cheddar and 12 ounces of American cheese, which I painstakingly had to pull apart one by one. And I did so off camera so that way you didn't have to suffer with me. Now, we're gonna go ahead and just lay this stuff in little by little. There's not a necessarily correct way to do it. You don't wanna add it all in at once, but you can. I've done it before because I get impatient and I don't wanna sit here and slowly do it. I'm just like, let me just throw it all in. But if you just add in a little by little, I added in about 1/4 of my medium cheddar and like 4 or 5 slices of my American cheese, and just let that stuff melt down. And then once it melts, you can continue on adding and stirring and adding and stirring. It's a relatively slow process, but it's worth it, I promise. Now, after about 15 minutes, or once you've added all your cheese and it's fully melted and incorporated, you'll be left with this very delicious cheese sauce. Now, it may look a little bit watery, but that's on purpose, because the problem with cheese sauce is that once you remove it from its heat source, it starts to get thicker and thicker as it cools. And again, we don't want that to happen on our nachos. So we're going to intentionally leave our cheese sauce on the runnier side, so that way as it cools down, it still has some movement to it, it's still loose, it's still a cheese sauce. Because we want this to be like that ballpark nacho cheese that's just gooey and delicious and cheesy and full of nostalgia. That's the goal. This is not a queso. This is 100% not a queso situation. But if you want to use queso, you could totally use queso. And also, now that this has been fully melted down, we're gonna go ahead and taste it for salt. We didn't want to add any in the beginning because that American cheese has a lot of salt in it. So we don't want to add too much, but this could use a little. Perfect. Now, if you want your chips to have a fighting chance to stay crispy instead of soggy, then there are 2 things that you need to do. The first is in your chip choice. You want to pick a chip that is on the thicker side. So don't go with those really thin style, like airy chips. Like, those are just going to snap immediately. Get something that is a little bit thicker. It's just going to help it. And then just spread those around on a baking sheet that you totally remembered to put tinfoil on. It's gonna be a pain to clean. Now, the second thing that we're gonna do to help ensure that we have a crispy chip all the way throughout is we're going to bake these first into the oven at 350 degrees for 2 to 3 minutes just to get them crispy. Now, that's gonna help to draw some of the moisture out, give them a better texture, as well as just give them more strength. So we're gonna do that. My wife isn't here to hold the camera today, so yeah, this is the angle you get. It's not great. And now that these are freshly toasted, we can go ahead and assemble in a very specific way. We're gonna start by adding most of our meat first. Now, the reason we're doing this is because this is going to also help prevent soggy chips. It's gonna work as a barrier between the hot cheese and the delicate but crispy chips. Now at this point, we can go ahead and drizzle on our cheese. Nice and even strokes back and forth with a spoon work great. And then the other way, just to make sure we've got even coverage throughout. Now we'll go back again with more of our meat, just the rest of it really. Give it one more drizzle of cheese sauce. And then here we just sprinkle on the rest of our toppings. Our corn salsa, diced tomatoes, diced avocados, green onions, our bag sauce. See, bag works great. And then we'll just garnish with a little bit of our green onions and our cilantro leaves. Wait, pickled jalapenos, because this is like the ultimate ballpark nacho topping. Beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I really hope that you learned something. Here's a photo of me in the kitchen as a kid, and I'll see you next week.